All right, people. Trump derangement syndrome is a pretty nasty disease. And then you have Israel derangement syndrome. That is also a pretty nasty disease. But when you suffer from both of those diseases simultaneously, then you're a lost cause. And that exactly is what's happening with Candace Owens. And that's exactly what's happening with Tucker Carlson. Now, obviously, we call him Tucker Carlson for a reason, because the Qataris have a lot of money and they have deep pockets. They have been spending billions of dollars in Western institutions, particularly in America and UK universities. But they have also been buying a lot of influencers, and Tucker Carlson seems like it is one of them. Have a listen to him. He's just, at this point, he's just dying to convert to Islam, but he hasn't converted to Islam for some reason.
Are delusional for a bunch of different reasons. I don't think that's an Israeli-specific phenomenon. We felt a little bit of that after 9/11, when people bought the lies about there were many lies about 9/11, but the net result was to convince Americans that they were under siege from global Islam.
No, that wasn't the argument at that point. No, the argument at that point was that radical Islam is a political ideology and it wants to destroy the American hegemony because of American bases in the Middle East and America's continued support for Israel. That was the argument, because the Muslim population in Western countries at that point was negligible. And most Muslim migrants in the West at that point were first generation who minded their own business. They could barely speak English. They had no sway in Western politics at all. Today, this is the argument today, that we are under siege from the Islamists, because you have look around you. You got Mamdani, you got Ilhan Omar, you got Rashida Tlaib, and they have already prepared the next generation of future congressmen and women who are Islamists, who are openly Islamists. We are under siege from, and that's just America, by the way. Have a look at the UK. You've got 50 Muslim MPs sitting in the House of Commons, and you've got hundreds of Muslim mayors and councillors across up and down the UK. That is the argument now. Tucker Carlson, stop freaking lying. Who listens to this person?
That there were a billion people trying to kill them. I felt this way myself.
Well, you were an idiot if you thought that, because obviously, and if you, 9/11 was the first major terrorist incident that alerted the West about Islam. Before that, most Americans, most Westerners didn't even know what Islam was. They didn't even know who Muhammad was. They didn't know anything about Muhammad's warlord activities, the way he spread his faith. Yes, previous generations of Westerners did know about Islam. For example, Churchill spoke about it. And then before him, Thomas Jefferson extensively spoke about Islam. But it somehow got diluted. It somehow got lost in history, because obviously there were no Muslims in the faces of ordinary Westerners. That's why, and you can forgive ordinary Westerners for not keeping up with the ideology of Islam. The reason why every Westerner almost knows about Muhammad today is because we are under siege from the Islamists. Everyone knows about Muhammad's child bride Aisha. Why? Yeah, we've been talking about this for a very long time, but now every person knows about it, because 9/11 is no longer an isolated incident. Everywhere you look at, every major Western country you look at, they're not under siege by the Hindus or by the Sikhs or by the Buddhists. There's always one religion, one ideology that is constantly trying to dismantle the West, in cahoots with the communists. So Tucker Carlson, you are a liar and a dumb idiot.
And many times I said on television, the problem is Islam. The problem is Muslims. Like, they all want to kill us. They're all crazy. They're all in this lunatic suicide cult.
Until I got paid by them.
Created by Muhammad in the 7th century. And I believe that. I was hysterical. I believed that. No, that's not true.
Why is it not?
That is true.
Why is that not true? Why is that not true? Is this idiot blind to thousands upon thousands of terrorist attacks, all, by the way, in the name of Islam? If he were to say that not all Muslims, fair enough. But he's saying Islam's got nothing to do with this. Islam's got nothing to do with this. What a world. Look, guys, again, this is, as I said, I don't know what's in his heart, but if you have Trump derangement syndrome, which he does now, because obviously he thinks that Trump is not in his pocket anymore. By the way, his son works for JD Vance. I don't know what's going on over there. And then on top of that, he went to Russia. He simps for Putin. He goes to the most affluent supermarket in Moscow, and he says, oh, look how cheap it is. The idiot has no idea. If you convert a second world country, because Russia is not on par with America or Western Europe. If you look at their grocery prices and you convert them in American dollars, then of course it's going to sound cheap. You can go to Pakistan and Bangladesh. You'll find a loaf of bread for 50 cents. You'll be like, oh, isn't that cheap? Yeah, but what is the purchasing power of an ordinary Pakistani? So again, is he idiot? Is he an idiot? I don't know. Or is he just doing that because he's suffering from Trump derangement syndrome coupled with Israel derangement syndrome, so much so that he is willing to get in bed with America's or West's enemy, being Putin, being Xi Jinping. Actually, I'm wondering when he's going to start simping for Xi Jinping. Maybe he does. I don't know. But at the moment, he is giving literal blowjobs to Islamists. I'm sorry for using that term, but that's exactly what he's doing. I'm sorry. Get that picture out of your head if you're getting that. But that is the most apt picture. Yeah, look at this. And he's saying, oh, Islam's got nothing to do with this. How do we deal with this, guys? How do we deal with this?
But I believed it. So it's a little harder for me to judge Israelis when they're like, every Arab, Christian or Muslim, it doesn't matter. Arabs are by definition committed to the extermination of Jews, and we must kill them before they kill us. Like, they believe that.
Oh, yeah. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that freaking amazing? Can this hypocrite not see a flaw in his own reasoning? On the one hand, which is a perfectly reasonable argument to make, that not every Muslim is an Islamist. Not every Muslim wants to destroy the West. That's a reasonable argument. I'm willing to give that to you, even though I am so hawkish towards Muslim culture and towards Islam. I am willing to acknowledge that. But the moment he flips the argument, he juxtaposes Israel. He said, that's what they all want. All Israelis want to kill all Arabs, regardless of them being Muslim or Christian. All Arabs. Oh, so there is no, there's no diversity of thought amongst the Israelis. In fact, the people, those Nova music festival goers, the ones who got butchered by Hamas in the name of Islam, because Islam wants them not to surrender that part of the Middle East to the Jews, even though it's their primary place of worship. I'm an atheist. I don't buy that argument. But, when you juxtapose these different ideologies and you apply the same standards, then you are forced to ask that question, that why are Muslims allowed to make religious claims on a piece of land, but Jews are not? That's what my problem is. I'm an atheist. I think both biblical and Quranic claims or Muslim claims, or Muslim religious claims on that piece of land are null and void in my book. But that's not how it works. If you're going to, then I don't know, maybe give that part of land to atheists, which is Israel actually is a secular state. Israel does not behave like a radical Jewish state. But according to him, they're all the same. Those people who went, the Nova music festival goers, they were actually dancing for peace. They were actually the lefties of Israel. They were sympathetic towards the plight of the Gazans in Jewish Americans, Jewish New Yorkers, and I don't know what's wrong with them. I can't understand lefty woke Jews, just like I can't understand lefty woke Hindus who are getting in bed with Islamists. Like, you idiots, do you have any idea what they will do to you? They're electing Islamists, not just ordinary Muslims. They're electing Islamists. Jewish Americans are electing Islamists. And here is this clown saying that Israelis or Jews, they want to kill all Arabs. They are just one big fat monolith. They have no diversity of thought. Do you understand that? Only a person who is suffering from a serious mental disorder, like Trump derangement syndrome and Israel derangement syndrome, can say something as outlandishly stupid thing as that. But yeah, but it's Tucker Carlson. Yeah, I don't know how to deal with these people. I guess that's all we can do. We can just keep talking about them. We can keep highlighting the fallacies in their arguments, in their positions. That's all we can do. And I really, really hope that Westerners, this is not a right or left issue anymore, even though this is the best way to describe it. But this is a Western civilization versus everything else issue. You don't have to be far right. Just have a look at this. Just have a look how degraded our discourse is. If you stand up for American values, just American values, okay? You're not making a white supremacist argument. You're not making anything. You're just standing up for American values. And it's the same phenomenon that we have observed all across the Western world. In Australia, you stand up for Australian values. In Britain, you stand up for British values. That's it. You're not saying anything out of the ordinary. You are basically saying what a liberal of the 90s was saying in the 90s, that we have free speech, we have freedom of religion, but we are loyal to America, we are loyal to Britain, we're loyal to Australia. If you come to our Western countries, our beautiful countries, if you want to be a part of our wonderful society, then you have to integrate and assimilate. This was the standard go-to line of every liberal in the 90s, because some of us are old enough. We were around that time. But now we have people who just say, first of all, they just say, you don't have to lose your identity. If you're an Islamist, that's perfectly fine. This is what is creating all these problems that we see today. And if anyone objects to that, he suddenly becomes far right. Far right, guys. So that's why I said this is not a far right or left issue. This is simply a Western civilizational issue. When every single Western country is suffering from that. And unfortunately, the same thing is happening in Japan and even in South Korea. Someone sent me this photo, this post from South Korea. So, and again, look, South Korea and Japan are very rich, unique cultures in their own right. And I respect them a lot. Why? Because they have created highly successful societies with their own traditional values. But I guess when you become, the problem is when you become a prosperous society, you tend to make fewer babies. So it's the same problem with Japan and South Korea, and they're also panicking. And as a result, guess who are they letting in? Islamists. The same problem. Look at this. South Korea's surging Muslim population in Ansan triggers fears of demographic replacement. They go wherever they go, they do the same thing over and over again. So my question to every single country is, or the patriots of every single country, why do you let them in? Look at this. A South Korea is filming this. He's obviously concerned. He's like, what the hell is going on? You got to remember, South Korea and Japan are very, up until very recently, are very insular societies. They are seeing this for the first time and they are horrified. This is why there is a sudden influx of Japanese activists who are translating our content into Japanese language, and they are flooding Japanese social media with videos of Muslim migrants doing all kinds of horrible things in Western countries like this. Look at this. This is Houston, guys. We have Governor Greg Abbott there in charge, but this is it. This chest thumping, this monkey business has to end. This has to end. And you know why it's becoming increasingly difficult to stop this? Because Westerners have this addiction to simp for foreigners who are hostile to their very identity, to their very civilization. Look at this. Ashura is a time of remembrance, sacrifice, and reflection. BS. I'll tell you the story in a minute. Today, on the 10th day of Muharram, which is the month when Imam Hussein, who was the grandson of Muhammad, Imam Hussein's unwavering commitment to truth and dignity. Shias love him. So Shias have, some people argue that Shias love Ali, who was the father of Imam Hussein. They put him even above Muhammad. And that's one of the fundamental disputes between the Sunnis and the Shias. We are reminded of Imam Hussein's unwavering commitment to truth and dignity. Bullshit. He was a power-hungry wannabe despot, but he was too stupid to realize that, oops. And by the way, what I'm saying, this is highly blasphemous. A Shia, if he hears me say this, if he's in front of me, he'll pull out his sword and will try to behead me. His timeless legacy reminds us of the enduring values of faith, service to one another, and the belief that justice is always worth fighting for. By justice, he means give me power. Our city's strength comes from the many faith traditions and shape it, and our shared struggle against injustice and oppression. May we carry these values forward as we continue. So BS, again, typical Islamizing everything. New York or America has nothing in common with Imam Hussein. Imam Hussein, as I said, was a power-hungry fool who challenged the caliph of the time, Yazid, whose father had promised Imam Hussein's brother, Imam Hassan, that when his time comes, he will not transfer the power to his son, but he did. And when he did, Imam Hussein said, "No, hang on a second. It was my turn. It's my turn to be the caliph." So he went to him and he sent his armies, and Imam Hussein actually used his. Imam Hussein was with women and children at that time, and he was surrounded by Yazid's forces. And this is where history gets a bit obscure. Yazid apparently claims, or people, Sunnis claim, that Yazid had never ordered his soldiers to massacre Imam Hussein and his family and his women and children. But Imam Hussein said, "I'm not going to go back. If you have to massacre us, then massacre us." Kind of like what Gazans do. You know what? They poke the bear and then they say, well, they use human shields. So Imam Hussein thought that because he was with his women and children, that's why Yazid is not going to order the massacre of their family. But they did. So yeah, that's where we are. And that's why you see these Shia Muslims, they chest thump because they say that they let him down, because Imam Hussein was brutally murdered along with his family by the Iraqis of the time. Karbala. That happened at Karbala, which is in present-day Iraq. So that's it. That's the story in a nutshell. He basically went there to challenge Yazid. He went there to say, "Hey, give me power. I am the next caliph, not you." This is classic power struggle 101. But yet here we are.